Welcome back to the Digital Den. I'm your host this afternoon, Lucas Alcorn. I'm gathered with Mr. Scott, the principal of the elementary school. Everybody give a round for him being here. Thank you for taking your time here. How are you doing, Mr. Scott?
I'm doing well. The sun is up today. I think we're in store for a pretty day, and I'm excited to be here with you all.
All right. Well, thank you. So could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you're a new principal coming in here.
Absolutely. So I'll start talking about my family, I guess, first to be a good place to go. So I'm married. My wife is actually an educator herself. She was a former classroom teacher, and now she is a counselor. She works in Franklin County at an alternative school, and she absolutely loves that role. So that's always a neat perspective, and she kind of keeps me in check a lot of times. With her being a classroom teacher previously and being a counselor, a lot of times I'll come home and think like, man, I've got this great idea, or I'll talk about how I handled a situation at school, and then she will quickly and lovingly tell me, hey, you didn't do this right. Like, you forgot what it's like to be a classroom teacher, or you didn't think about the social emotional impact. But all jokes aside, it is nice to be able to bounce ideas off of her and to share that with her. She kind of gets what it's like to be an educator because she is one, too. And then we have two beautiful kids, one that just turned 4, Anna Lee, and then we have Lincoln that is 8. And they're both a handful and completely different, yet the same at the same time.
That's awesome. How long have you been working in education?
So this is my 14th year.
Wow.
Before this, I was a classroom teacher, instructional coach, and then this is my first role as a principal, and this is my second year as a principal. So there you go, right. 14 years total.
That is pretty impressive. Could you tell us about how you got to being principal at SCES?
Absolutely, and this is a little bit of a funny story, I guess. So I started out actually as a business marketing major at UK, and thinking that was the route that I wanted to take after I graduated high school. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, like most people, or some people, I guess, that graduate high school, And so I started that, had 3 years in, and then decided that, this is not what I want to do. So after 3 years, I took a year off of school, basically, and just kind of was a kid, I guess. Even though I was in college, I kind of just lived the college life, and we show horses and we do things with the farm. So I kind of did that for about a year, just, not having to go to school. Because I'll be honest, I wasn't one at the time that really enjoyed school. So taking a year off to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And then after about a year, I was basically told, you got to figure out something you're going to do, right? So I knew a degree was important. I just didn't know what I necessarily wanted a degree in. So my sister is about 10 years older than me, and she is a teacher. This is like year 25 or 26 for her. She's getting up there with her years of experience. But at the time, we kind of have like a loving rivalry. And so I thought, what would annoy my sister? And I thought, man, if I go to the same college that she went to and if I get the same degree that she had, that would really annoy her. So what I did was I literally one day was driving in Frankfurt and popped in at Kentucky State and said, hey, I think I want to be an education major. Didn't even specify really elementary at the time, but that's where I ended up. And so did that for about 3 years and finished up and didn't even know if I even wanted to use the degree, to be honest. But then I was hired, worked, like I said, as a classroom teacher. My first role was in 2nd grade, and so that was an adventure in itself. And then after doing that, being in 2nd grade for a while, I moved up to 5th grade, basically because they were trying to figure out, man, is this dude even going to last? You know what I mean? Like maybe 2nd grade wasn't his cup of tea, so they put me in 5th grade. So I taught 5th grade for a while. I really enjoyed 5th grade. To answer your question, though, that's about the time that I realized, man, I think I might want to be a principal. Mm-hmm. And so about year 3 into teaching, I was like, this is something long-term. I think, end goal would be to be a principal. So I started realizing I've got to have some different experiences, right? Because, I wanted to be able to, when I finally became a principal, to be able to say, man, I've been at this school, I've been at this grades, because I personally believe there's something to be able to say, hey, I've taught a similar grade as you, or I've taught this subject, because when you go in and work with teachers, it gives you, I think, more substance. Mm-hmm. So I taught 2nd grade, taught 5th grade, ended up leaving a school that was a really nice school. I have nothing negative to say about it, but the decision was I wanted to go to another school and to another district just to gather experiences. Mm-hmm. So then I went on to another district, another school, taught 4th grade there for a few years, really enjoyed that. Then the opportunity came for me to go back to the district that I started in as an instructional coach. And so I got to be in all grades at that point. And I really, really enjoyed that because then you're walking into, kindergarten, first grade, all these different rooms, seeing different teachers, and that's where you really learn. Like you're learning as much from them as they are from you. So basically, I did 8 years in the classroom, 4 years as an instructional coach, and then somebody came to me and said, "Hey, we really need a principal at Spencer County Elementary." So my initial question was, where is Spencer County Elementary? And so I did a little research, got on Facebook, got on Google, and started looking things up. And I thought, man, this is an amazing school. I'm going to give it a shot. So it was the first time I ever interviewed to be a principal. Went in there, I didn't know anybody. It was as green as a gourd. And about an hour after my interview, Mr. Abel called me and said, "Hey, I hope you're ready because you're going to be the next principal."
Wow.
So that's how it kind of happened.
Putting you through fire, kind of. So, going into a little research on you, I know that you raise Tennessee Walker horses.
That's right.
You're a big Kentucky fan.
That's
Could you
right.
tell us some of your hobbies?
Well, basically, that's the two big ones right there. Both sides of my family, my parents grew up showing Tennessee walking horses. Their parents grew up showing Tennessee walking
So
horses.
it's a generational thing.
So since about 1960, we have been involved pretty heavily in Tennessee walking horses. I've been fortunate enough to not only show, but be on several different boards, have several different leadership positions within the industry, especially in the state of Kentucky. And that honestly has really translated well to this role for many reasons because, dealing with equine, dealing with any kind of agriculture entity, I guess, you're working with people from all walks of life, right? So, I'm a big believer we are who we are. Like, people are people. But, you learn to deal with people that are millionaires, people that have had some different, life experiences, and people that, have a lot of need. Mm-hmm. So being able to translate that, and working in the school system, it kind of sounds odd, but it's really helped me in a lot of ways to learn how to just connect with people and to get real with people. I'm big on connections, and so that's really helped. And then just the discipline that has taught me growing up. I'm a big believer that kids need to be involved in something, whether it's ag, sports, band, whatever, because I think all those life lessons that it teaches you. As far as UK, I'm a huge UK basketball, UK football, UK anything. And I kind of joke, but I'm not joking. When the job came around, I looked and I said, well, they're blue, so that helped. Had Spencer County Elementary been a red school or, red colors, I don't know that I'd be here, to be honest. And then my favorite animal is a bear. So with us being the Cubs, I was like, man, it's written in the stars.
Perfect home for you.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. Do you have any future goals in education or maybe even personally that you could continue to work towards? I know that your motto is learn, lead, love.
Absolutely,
I think I got that right.
Yeah, so when we came in, there were so many amazing things going on at Spencer County Elementary. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to be there, because I was like, man, everything is in place. Like, I'm a huge sports fan, so I translate, I use a lot of sports analogies, So, to me, it's big that you look at the ingredients of your team. Like, if you think about John Calipari, or anytime a coach is deciding where am I going to go next, they're looking at, do you have the resources? Do you have the players? Do you have all the ingredients to make your next move successful? And for me, it was all there at Spencer County Elementary. So we kind of had to craft a vision, and part of that was the love, learn, lead, because, at the end of the day, we got to make sure these kids and these teachers and every staff member feel loved. I think that's crucial. I got to learn. That's the heart of it. That's why we're at school. We're at school to learn. But then beyond that, we've got to be able to lead. So I think about that and all the work that our district is doing with the profile of a learner, all the next steps that we're doing to show kids even in kindergarten, hey, it's not about learning to count to 10. It's about one day you're going to be out in this real world. You're going to have a job. And that's the heart of why we're at school, is to make you successful after school. And so, that's part of that work and that vision. As far as personally, I don't ever see myself wanting to leave, the school setting. People at central office, all those higher up positions, those are great, and I respect their roles. But the disconnect from being able to see kids every single day, and they do get in our buildings, I'm not saying that, but I just think there's something to be said for being in a building with kids, with teachers. Those are my people. That's where I want to be. And so, to me, I have, perfect job, being a principal at Spencer County Elementary, or any elementary school. Like that's what I've always wanted. So that's pretty cool. As far as kind of related to that, one day I'd like to write a children's book.
Oh,
I don't know
really?
if that'll ever happen or not, but I think that would be cool to have something that's out there like that.
That's a good inspiration to have. You talk about your team. Could you tell us about your school staff and classes and how they're kind of set up and run?
Absolutely. So I'm a big believer, like I said, alluded to. I don't know if I should. I'll just be honest with you all. My wife says I'm the laziest, hardworking person you'll ever meet. And so, I'm a big believer that there has to be balance in your life, right? Mm-hmm. Like there has to be time that you just take off and you're with your family, you're doing things you love, and then I think there's times that you need to work hard. I think it's hard sometimes to kind of try to do both at the same time. You know what I mean? So when I'm working, and when I'm not, I'm not. And that's one of the things I talked about in my interview, Mm-hmm. But I say all that to say, to me, the hiring process is super crucial. I would dare say that getting the right staff in place is 85% of the challenge as an administrator. And I'm also big on not having titles. Like, I don't like the concept of, I think it does say principal somewhere on my office, but I couldn't even tell you where. It's not that I'm not proud of my degrees, but I don't even know where my degrees are. Because to me that doesn't matter. Like, it's a piece of paper. I worked hard to get them to some extent, paid a lot of money, still paying a lot of money to pay them off. But, I just want to be, I don't think there's any role that's more important or less important, I guess is what I'm getting at. So, like, we value, when we put out a position that we have an opening, there's the thought of, oh, well, this is just this position, Mm-hmm. Every single position in a school, I would argue, is equally as important. So what I'm getting at is we put so much energy into, we don't have a lot of turnover, thankfully, but when we do have people that, leave, or when we have people that, like, we're growing, so we have a lot of new positions because of our growth. When we have that, people talk about how there's a teacher shortage. Well, I can promise you last March, we were already going out, being on the forefront, contacting people saying, hey, why don't you come work with us? We'd buy them lunch. We would, hey, come visit our school, see what we have going on, because to me, it's that important. We hired roughly 11 people, I believe, over the summer. And as far as classroom teachers, we hired classroom teachers that already had 4 to 5, 6 years experience that were leaving tenure in other districts to come and be with us. And, I love having new teachers. I'm not saying that, but there's also something to be said for when you can contact somebody that's at a school and say, hey, we got an opening. Why don't you come here and work for us? And then honestly, you kind of start that recruitment process, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're showing them, hey, what we have going on here is something special. And to come full circle with my answer, it makes my job a lot easier when you've got the right people in the right seats.
I love that. I love that answer. So you're talking about getting people who are 10 years coming back in, leaving their county to come here to our district. Is there anybody new on the staff that maybe you want to shout out that's doing a good job?
That's a dangerous question right there. Like I said, we've got, and if I try to start giving you specific names, I'm going to get myself in trouble. But we have at least 11, and honestly now it might be up to 12 or 13 new just from last school year. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to tell you that they're dynamite. And I constantly come up to them, and, there's a few in particular that I'm like, hey, you happy here? You good here? Like, what we need to do, because we need to keep you here. Like, we need to keep you in Spencer County. It all goes back to the kids. Like, the heart of everything we do is the kids. But I would also argue the better instructors, the better staff we can present to you, it's going to translate to a kids having a better experience. So... and the value that they bring in as far as new ideas. Because, when we have people that have been in other districts, other schools, there is something great going on in every public school, private school, doesn't matter. In every school setting, there is something great going on. And when those people leave those places and bring those to Spencer County Elementary, that just helps us out, right? So I don't want to name specifics, but I can tell you that they're all, really, really good.
All right. Do you have any plans that you're kind of looking at going into this next year, going into these 2 years that you're excited to start developing now?
Absolutely. So one of the, I don't have many strengths, but I think one thing that I can do decently well is to be able to create a vision. Now I've got have a lot of people help, carry out that vision. But what we try to do at Spencer County Elementary is continually have like a 30, 60, 90-day plan. And so essentially what that means is we think, what are the things that we're going to do in the immediate, like in the next, doesn't have to necessarily be 30 days, but in the next month or two, what are we working on with the kids, with the staff, with our parents? What are we doing? What are we doing 60 days? What are we doing in the next several months that are going to be going on? And then that 90-day plan is more of the year plan. What do we have going on? But then beyond that, we're always planning. Like I can tell you right now, there is a plan drafted for 3 years down the road at Spencer County Elementary. Because again, being a classroom teacher, and I don't always do perfect at this, like there's a lot of fault here, but I would argue there's no harder job than being a classroom teacher. Let me just say that, okay? It's being a principal, as second year in, I can tell you it's not as hard as being a classroom teacher. Like that is the toughest job anybody that I know would ever have, okay? And I guess my point in that is you don't want to overwhelm them, right? Mm-hmm. And so, my staff may argue this at times, I get it, but we truly, truly try to think, if everything's important, then nothing's important. That's a quote that's been thrown out several times at district meetings, and I really believe that. You can't do everything at once. Mm-hmm. And so we really try to scaffold and talk about with our staff, okay, for right now, let's just focus on this. And then once we get really good at this, then let's move on. Mm-hmm. We call them kind of points of emphasis or our big rocks. Like, what are we working on now in the immediate? But then they know what's coming, but we're not worried about that just yet, if that makes sense. So I'll give you an example. Last year, my first year in, we really talked about our MTSS system, which is multi-tiered systems of support, making sure that each student in our school, we're looking at them holistically, right? Like, we're looking at their attendance, we're looking at their behavior, we're looking at their academics, so they can get what they need sooner than later. So we started setting that system up and defining that maybe a little stronger than it was. We started looking at our PBIS, like our behavior system, and making sure that we're rewarding positive behaviors, that we're putting things in place that when you go to, because at elementary school, right? Mm-hmm. When you go to the bathroom, is everybody using the same language as far as how you wash your hands, how you walk in the hallways? Because all that matters, At an elementary level, I know I'm off on a tangent a little bit, but if one teacher says walk in the hallway, well, that kind of makes sense. But then another teacher says be a level 1 in the hallway. Well, that kindergartner, that first grader is like, well, is walk a level 1? Or, they get confused. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to some degree that we're using the same verbiage and the same language in the elementary setting. Now that sounds simplistic, but that's kind of like your pillars. You got to have that. So that's where we really worked last year. This year we're working a lot with our reading and our math, because I would argue that I'm a social studies person. I love social studies. But if you can't read, if you can't comprehend, if you can't do basic math, that's the basics there. So this year we're really getting back to the basics with that. And so we always have a plan of what are we working on next.
I love it. Any exciting things that have happened this year so far? I know you kind of laid some out that as far as your plan, your 30-day plan, 60-day plan, but anything outside of that maybe?
Absolutely. So I probably neglected to say, when you asked about like new hires and things, we have some people in some new roles that I'm really excited about, okay? So we have, we kind of did a little shifting, so to speak, and we have Miss Samantha Dennis as our assistant principal, who does a phenomenal job, and it goes back to me being like the laziest, hardworking person ever. Like, she's a worker, right? Like, she is, I'll come up with these crazy ideas, and, she helps with them too, but then she's the one that really makes them happen a lot of times. I'll just be honest. She'll be like, well, okay, that's a great idea, Mr. Scott, but if we're going to do it, we got to place this order. We got to go to Sam's. We got to get, and she's the one, I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Like, I just thought the idea. So she makes that happen. So that's been exciting to have her in this new role. She was our instructional coach. So she shifted over to that position. And then Sarah White, who was a classroom teacher, now is transitioned over to being our instructional coach.
Okay.
So as a former instructional coach, it's kind of hard to let some of that go sometimes. But she's taken off and running with it. I actually made her read a book. I didn't make her, but I asked her to read a book. I asked Samantha, Miss Dennis, to do the same thing. Your first 90 days. And the premise of that book is when you start a new role and a new position, the first 90 days will form the opinions of others of you in that role, if that makes sense. So like, you're no longer in this role, so now you're in this new position, and those first 90 days are crucial. And they have done phenomenal in those new roles. So I think that has breathed some new excitement into our building. But one of the things that they have helped generate is we now have a house system at Spencer County Elementary, which is pretty cool. Taylorsville Elementary does it as well. And it's kind of like, if you're a Harry Potter fan, it's kind of like the Harry Potter house system.
Okay.
And so each kid, we're one of the largest elementary schools, K through 5, in the state of Kentucky. We're at 815 kids, so that's pretty huge if you go and compare what the average elementary school is. And so with the design of our building, we have the pod system. This house system really helps kids like, oh, I didn't know you were in OSA, or I didn't know you were in this house or den, because they see each other wearing their house colors, things like that. They're earning points. So that's probably what I'm most excited about, just because it's fun.
Getting the kids excited to come to school. Do you have any exciting events coming before Christmas? I know elementary school, always fun to celebrate the holidays with the kids.
So starting today, I think we're 12 days out before Christmas break, and so we are starting with our staff. So it's twofold, right? We got to keep the kids happy. We got to keep the staff happy. That's a both, right? It's a both and. So we are working with our staff starting at 12 days of Christmas starting today. I think there's a good chance we might have somebody from the North Pole visiting us today. The kids don't really know that yet, but that's going to be a little surprise and delight there for them. But so starting each day with our staff, we're doing something special for them. So that's, to honor them, because, again, they're working hard, right? Like, regardless of what they're doing, they're working super hard. And then for our kids, we have Grinch Week. That will be the week before Christmas break. So we're doing some thematic things like that for them. It's funny because I think people know last year, I got up on the roof as an elf to try to, do some things for the kids on the last day of school. So everybody's starting to ask, so what are you going to do this year before the last day before break? So we got some things in the works. We'll see. And our fabulous PTO has got a little surprise and delight for our kids on Monday when they come back. But I won't say what that is just yet. But we've got some things in the works.
Super exciting. What would you like to tell parents or kindergartners coming into the elementary school next year to kind of get them to know what Spencer County is about?
Absolutely. That's a great question because, I'll start by saying this. Once these kids get into our building, because of our educators, because of every role in that building, whether it's ECE, instructional aide, classroom teacher, specialist teacher, doesn't matter. Those kids are going to be just fine because we have the best of the best. And I know I keep saying that, but that's the heart of it, right? But, even though these kids are just 5 years old when they come into our building, there's already a gap sometimes. And so at the heart of it, the best thing that you can do for your kids, if you have a kid coming to either Spencer County Elementary or Taylorsville, I'll speak for Miss Jump for a minute too, is to just talk with them and read with them. There is no greater value than to sit down each night and to read to your kids. If you're doing that, I promise you your kid is going to be just fine when they enter school. There's a difference. You can tell the kids that have been read to and the kids that have not been read to. I'll put that out there. And so we want them to come to us, somewhat already prepared. And so it doesn't have to be fancy. Go to the library, buy books, but it works. The other thing is, I mentioned Miss Jump at Taylorsville Elementary. She and I work really well together. We both got hired at the same time. I tease her because I'm a month ahead of her, so I'm the pro, in the life. But she was an assistant principal before, and I wasn't, so she really knows more. But this summer, we got with Miss Amanda Butler, and we started working on having a kinder camp. Because before, what was kind of happening, and before COVID, I know we had some good things in place, but then COVID happened. I think some good practices kind of got abandoned everywhere, right? And so we didn't really have anything for our incoming kindergartners to really make sure that not only the parents were prepared, the kids were prepared. So we came up with the idea of a kinder camp. So we now offer that, and we'll offer it again this year, where kids actually get to come into school before school officially starts. And that gives them kind of a half-day experience, lets the parents see, like, this is how dismissal is going to work. This is how arrival works. And all those are very important. And we can actually kind of see the kids and figure out who needs what a little sooner than later, if that makes sense. So that day one, we're more prepared for them.
I love that. Do you want to tell us anything, any announcements that you have for this is going out to the whole district. So anything for the district to know about the elementary school coming?
Another great question. I guess what I can tell you is this. As somebody who we talked about before, that I was always a goal to be different schools, different districts, so that because you're going to learn anywhere. And I've been blessed to be several places, but Spencer County as a whole, I call it a Mayberry. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like Andy Griffith. If you probably don't even know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I do, sir. I might be one of the only ones in the room, but
it truly is. So that first off is a blessing. I mean, knock on wood, like at our school, we have days, we have moments where we have to deal with some behaviors, things like that. But I mean, because of the parents, because of the homes they're coming from, we've got good kids and we've got good parents. And so if you're living here, you're blessed. That's the first thing I'll say. The second thing is, we talked about Taylorsville's huge. We're huge with 815 kids. But at the same time, we're a small district. Mm-hmm. So even though our buildings are huge, as a district, it is so nice to sit down and to, we talk as a principals, as administrators, we talk on a weekly basis. It's really nice to be able to talk to Mr. Phillips and say, hey, what do you need your high schoolers doing? Because we'll start them in kindergarten doing what you need, if that makes sense. I think about the profile of a learner. That's, the best example I can give where, hey, you start building the design up here, and then all the schools work together to kind of, because it's a system, right? Like the kindergartners one day are going to graduate from here. Mm-hmm. So we got to be in this together. And I feel like we truly, in this district, are in it together. Can't say enough good about Dr. Foster, Mr. Rucker, Miss Butler, up at central office, Miss Howie. Everybody's working together to make sure that we're getting what we need. And so I guess that's my big thing. As somebody, I'm not going to knock anybody. I've been in some great places. But I must say this is truly, truly, truly a very special place. So if you've got a kid in this school system, we still say the pledge every morning. We do some things that you're not going to see every place. And I think that on top of the education, just what they're getting safety-wise with our school resource officers, with our social emotional, with the counseling they get, they're getting, it's second to none. I'll just leave it at that. It's a special place.
Well, thank you, Mr. Scott, for coming out here and doing this interview with us. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at digitalden.schs. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day.